Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava Metzia, page 99a, top of the page, with the words Biad Avdo Chayev. The Gemara just started. Yad Eved Biad Kiad Rabo. The Mishnah states that if the borrower agrees to have the lender send the cow by the hand of the lender's slave, and it died on the way, then the borrower is liable. The Gemara asks, but isn't the hand of the slave legally like the hand of his master? As long as the cow is in the possession of the lender's slave, it is not considered to have left the lender's possession. Why then is the borrower liable? Amar Shmuel be'eved ivri delo kani le gufe. The Gemara presents two solutions. Shmuel said, the Mishnah is referring to a Hebrew slave whose master does not acquire his person. Therefore, property in the slave's possession is not considered to be in his master's possession. Rav Amar afilu tema be'eved kanani nasik yomer le'eki shebemakal hi tavo. Rav said, you may even say that the Mishnah is referring to a Canaanite slave, and this case may be considered like one in which the borrower said to the lender, hit the cow with a stick, then it will come on its own to me. Just as in the case the borrower is liable once the cow leaves the lender's domain, so too, in this case, he is liable once the cow leaves the lender's domain, irrespective of the fact it was brought by the lender's slave. The Gemara raises an objection from a Braita. If one borrows a cow, and with the agreement of the borrower, the lender sends it to him by the hand of his son, or by the hand of his agent, and it dies on the way, then the borrower is liable if the lender sent it by the hand of his slave. Then the borrower is exempt. The final clause appears to contradict the Mishnah's ruling. The Gemara elaborates, granted, according to the resolution of Shmuel, one can explain that the Mishnah is referring to a Hebrew slave, whereas the Braita is referring to a Canaanite slave. But according to the resolution of Rav, who maintained that the Mishnah is referring to a Canaanite slave, the contradiction is difficult. The Gemara presents a modified version of Rav's resolution. Rav could say to you, do not say in explanation of the Mishnah that the case may be considered like one in which the borrower said to the lender, hit the cow with a stick, and then it will come on its own. Rather, say that it is referring to a case where the borrower actually said to the lender, hit the cow with a stick, and then it will come to me on its own. Accordingly, one can explain that the Braita is referring to a case where he did not say this, and therefore, as long as the cow is still in the possession of the slave, the borrower is not liable. It was stated, as it was stated, one said to another, lend me your cow. And the lender said to the borrower, by whose hand shall I send it? And the borrower said to him, hit the cow with a stick, and then it will come on its own to me. Rav Nachman says that Rabba bar Avu says that Rav says, in this case, the halacha is that once the cow left the domain of the lender and it died, the borrower is liable. The Gemara suggests, let us say that the following Braita supports this opinion of Rav. One said to another, lend me your cow, and the lender said to the borrower, by whose hand shall I send it? And the borrower said to him, hit the cow with a stick, and then it will come to me on its own. The halacha is that once the cow left the domain of the lender and then it died, the borrower is liable. Rav Ashi said that the Braita is not a conclusive proof of Rav's opinion. It is possible to say, with what are we dealing here? With a case where the courtyard of the borrower is situated further in from the public domain than the courtyard of the lender, such that when the lender sends the cow to him, it will certainly go there. Consequently, the borrower is willing to accept liability from the moment the lender sends it. The Gemara asks, if so, if that is the case addressed in the Braita, what is the purpose of stating this halacha? It is obvious. The Gemara explains, no, it is necessary for the case of a courtyard in which there are corners, lest you say, the borrower does not rely on the possibility that the animal will come to him, as perhaps the animal will go and stand there in one of the corners and not come straight to the borrower's courtyard. The Braita therefore teaches us that even in such a case, he relies on the assumption that a cow will nevertheless come to him, and so he accepts liability. Rav Huna says, in the case of one who borrows an axe from another once he has chopped wood with it, he has acquired it, but as long as he has not chopped wood with it, he has not acquired it. The Gemara clarifies, with regard to what matter does one acquire the axe, if we say he has acquired it for the purpose of being liable for unavoidable mishaps. In other words, his liability as a borrower begins once he uses the axe. Then one could ask, what is different when one borrows a cow that one is liable as a borrower from the moment of borrowing, even before one makes use of it? Rather, Rav Huna refers to one's right of retraction as follows. Once the borrower has chopped wood with it, the lender cannot renege on his commitment to lend the item. But as long as the borrower has not chopped wood with it, the lender can renege on his commitment to lend the item and prevent the borrower from borrowing the item. And with this opinion, Rav Huna disagrees with the opinion of Rav Ami, as Rabbi Ami says, one who lends another an axe that is of property consecrated to the temple treasury has thereby misused consecrated property. He is liable to pay the temple treasury according to the financial advantage he received from lending the axe. And despite this, that other person, in other words, the borrower, is permitted to chop wood with it ab initio. The Gemara explains how it is apparent that Rabbi Ami disagrees with Rav Huna, and if one holds that the borrower does not acquire the axe from the moment of borrowing, why has the lender misused consecrated property? To be liable for misuse of consecrated property, one must acquire the item, thereby removing it from the temple treasury. And furthermore, why is that other person permitted to chop wood with it ab initio? If the borrower does not acquire the axe from the moment of borrowing, let the borrower return the axe and not acquire it, and consequently the lender will not have misused consecrated property, as it will have turned out that nothing significant occurred. Rather, it is evident that Rabbi Ami holds that the act of lending is fully completed as soon as the borrower takes the axe, even before he has used it. And furthermore, with this opinion, Rav Huna disagrees with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, as Rabbi Elazar says, in the same way in which the sages instituted for buyers, that they can acquire an item by pulling it, and from that point the transaction is completed, so too they instituted for bailies that their rights and responsibilities are initiated by their pulling the item. They agreed to safeguard, and from that point the transfer of the item to the Bailey is completed. Tanya Namihachi Keshem Tiknu Mashiach Belekoichos Belekochot Kach Tiknu Mashiach B'Shamim B'Shamim. The opinion of Rabbi Elazar is also taught in a Braita, just as the sages instituted for buyers that they can acquire an item by pulling it, so too they instituted for baileys that their rights and responsibilities are initiated by them pulling the item they agreed to safeguard. And just as, to be continued on 99b.